Man, the Red Sox were on such a good streak of this, too. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin, and going into this Yankees series, the Red Sox received some unfortunate news, and that is that one of their top relievers will not be joining them in the Bronx and instead will be headed to the injured list. So what we are going to do in today's video, or well, I guess the second video of the day, is break this injury down, talk about who it was, what the injury is, how long they could be out, and what the Red Sox are going to do to replace them. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so for those of you who may not know what I am talking about yet, just a couple of hours ago, basically right around 5 o'clock, the Red Sox announced that they will be placing Red Sox reliever Chris Martin on the 15-day IL with what they are calling right now as right elbow inflammation. Now, obviously, right elbow inflammation is a pretty vague diagnosis on what the injury actually is, and with relievers or pitchers in general, really, that is a very scary injury to go down with. We've seen it probably 100 times over the past couple of years that they start with elbow inflammation. Then a couple weeks later, they're ending up losing about a year and a half of playing time to Tommy John surgery. Obviously, I don't want to put that out there for Chris Martin yet. We're going to have to wait and see what the results end up being. They're probably going to be a couple more tests here. We'll probably find something out in the next week or so, I would imagine, as to what the extent of Chris Martin's injury actually is. Now, Alex Cora did seem pretty optimistic about how long Chris Martin would be out for. He was talking to reporters before game and mentioned that he does not believe that is a super serious issue for Chris Martin. But my big fear with all of this is that it's the 15-day IL. If it really wasn't that big of an issue, I would assume that they would have placed him on the 10-day IL. It just looks a little bit better, gives him a little bit less time off, and they could get him back into the action as soon as humanly possible. So the 15-day does worry me a little bit because Chris Martin has been a really important player on this Red Sox team so far this year. Despite all the factors that have gone against Chris Martin this year, he's been really solid on the mound. In fact, it's to a tune of a 3.42 ERA over 26 appearances, exactly 26 and a third innings. It is a 3.39 FIP, meaning he, even to the tune that he's pitching to right now, he's getting a bit unlucky out there. It's also a 1.025 WHIP, which means he's not really allowing a ton of traffic on the bases, and that could be backed up by the fact that he is one of the lowest walk rates of his entire career right now at just 0.7 per 9 innings. That is less than one walk, and he's been striking out more batters than we're used to with Chris Martin, even though it's just 1 year comparison, but still, it's a 9.9 strikeouts per 9 compared to last year was at 8.1. Kind of in every sense of the word outside of his ERA, Chris Martin's been a bit better this year than he was last year. And on top of that, it is a 1.27 ERA plus, which is 27% better than the average pitcher in Major League Baseball. Now, I know he's had his blow-ups this season, and there were times like where Chris Martin just didn't really look like the Chris Martin we knew to grow and love. But since he came back and really got himself right mentally, he's been a whole lot better. Between June and July, since he's been back off the IL with anxiety, he has not allowed a single earned run in 5 separate appearances. Now, obviously, that's not a massive sample size, but that was a big step in the right direction, and losing Chris Martin's going to put a lot of extra strain on this Red Sox bullpen. He was a very important figure as to how this team was going to close out games. They're going into a really important stretch of this season, and Chris Martin going down is not great news for the Red Sox bullpen. It's going to be really interesting to see how they're going to navigate those late 7th inning and 8th inning appearances before Chris Martin can come back, if he is going to be able to come back. Again, I don't want to put that out into the atmosphere. I'm just saying that is a possibility, especially with the injury that he's gone down with. Either way, in my opinion, I think we should give Zach Kelly a chance at being that setup to the closer type role. He's been absolutely fantastic for the most part this year. He didn't have a great Miami series, but overall, he's come in some really big spots and done some really great things. Again, he's not going to be a Chris Martin, but he could be somebody that helps the Red Sox bridge that 7th, 8th inning gap. Obviously, Kenley's going to stay right where he is. Overall, looking at this injury from who's going down perspective, it's not great, right? And I got a feel for Chris Martin as well, and I'm sure you guys do too. He's been dealing dealing with injuries this entire season. He just was brave enough to admit that, hey, I need to get myself right in the head before I could get back out there and pitch. He was able to conquer that, and then basically the second he comes back after conquering that, he ends up on the IL again. That's gotta be tough for him, and I feel really bad for him. I really genuinely hope that he is able to make his way back onto this Red Sox team, because again, the Red Sox could really use his help. However, it wasn't just Chris Martin headed the IL. Someone else came up to replace him, so let's talk about him as well. But before we do, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for taking a second and doing so. Let's talk about who's coming up to try and replace Chris Martin. In order to fill the gap that Chris Martin was leaving on the Red Sox roster, the Red Sox decided to call up left-handed reliever Cam Boozer from AAA Worcester. Now, obviously, we all know a whole lot about Cam Boozer. He was with the Red Sox for a pretty significant amount of time already this season, but honestly, I didn't realize just how good his underlying metrics are, because with his time on the Red Sox earlier this year, he had a 3.21 ERA in 28 total innings, which was a 2.84 FIP, meaning he was actually getting a bit unlucky on the mound from the left-hand side, and that's really indicative that he could be a really solid piece for this Red Sox team. He had a whip of 1.179, which was pretty solid. He was striking out over 9 batters every 9 innings at 10.6 and walking just 1.9, which all led to an ERA plus of 135. So far with the Red Sox this season, he has been 135% better than the average pitcher in Major League Baseball. Now, we talk about this all the time, and basically anytime I bring up the bullpen, I mention this, but it truly is genuinely impressive, the depth that Craig Breslow was able to build in the bullpen over the course of just one off season. It really feels like anytime someone goes down in that bullpen, there is someone there who is able to replace him and do an adequate job in this pen and getting outs and allowing the Red Sox to continue to win, because normally a hit like Chris Martin, especially with something like elbow inflammation, would really scare the hell out of me. But with Cam Boozer and the guys that are already in this bullpen, there are guys in here who I think can step up and maintain that role, maybe not to Chris Martin's level like we saw last year, but at a pretty decent level that keeps the Red Sox in these games. It's something I don't think Craig Breslow gets enough credit for, and he's done a really great job of maintaining that this season, right? He's been quick to send people down or bring people up, and he's been able to maintain the consistency that has been the Red Sox bullpen. I think Cam Boozer is a really great example of that. Now, there is one concern that I do have with the addition of Cam Boozer, and that is that the Red Sox bullpen is honestly now a little bit lefty heavy. You've got Brennan Bernardino, who is obviously your everyday lefty. That's your high leverage guy, the dude that you are going to call on when you need to get big time lefties out. You've got Bailey Horn, who sort of assumed this Brad Keller-esque role where he's in a mop-up role or in a victory cigar role, and he's been, I guess, okay. I wouldn't say he's been fantastic. He definitely didn't have a great first outing, but obviously he didn't come into a fantastic situation there. And then you've got Cam Boozer. At some point here, there may be some mismatches here, and the Red Sox are going to have to decide, outside of Bernardino, who do they believe can get righties out the best? I would have to assume that's going to become Cam Boozer, but either way, that's going to be a really interesting dynamic for Alex Cora to work with in a season where he really hasn't had a lot of lefty pitches to work with. Obviously, no one in the rotation's a lefty, and this is the first time this season they've had more than 2 lefties in a bullpen. So hopefully it gives Alex Cora some versatility and doesn't throw him off too much in terms of his game plan. I don't think it'll be too big of an issue, but that is one of the first things that came to my head when I saw that Cam Boozer was replacing Chris Martin. Like I said, when Cam Boozer was originally sent down, I assumed that he would be back up pretty quickly. He had been fantastic for the Red Sox this year, and that move felt more like just simply roster manipulation than it was anything to do with Cam Boozer himself. So I'm excited to see him back up here. He absolutely deserved it, and I think he's going to be a much needed piece for this Red Sox bullpen, maybe in a bit of a higher leverage role as well. So that's going to be something else to keep an eye on. Overall, taking a look at this injury as a whole, it's obviously not fantastic. We just talked about it when breaking down the Chris Martin stuff. This is the last dude who deserved to have an injury like this. I'm a little bit nervous what it might end up being. I'm assuming they're going to be running more tests, so I will keep you guys as updated as humanly possible. But I am excited about the fact that the Red Sox have so much bullpen depth. A guy like Chris Martin can go down, and someone else who's been just as productive at the big league level, at least statistically, can come back up and take his place. And I still think that's absolutely fantastic, and I still think Craig Breslow deserves those flowers. But overall, again, I hate the fact that we're talking about injuries amidst a part of the season where it's felt like everything's really started clicking for the Red Sox. I'm praying to God this isn't the start of anything else, right? Knock on wood. Because if it is, I may absolutely lose my mind. But that's just me. So let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think about the Chris Martin injury news? And what do you think about the injury itself? Are you a little bit nervous about what it could end up being? Do you think I might be overreacting just a little bit in terms of what this injury could be? Let me know all your thoughts on the latest Red Sox roster move in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Sox almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just helps out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Don't forget, you can always get these episodes available anywhere you get podcasts. Link to Spotify and Apple Podcasts are in my description down below. Or you can just simply head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.